and the circulatory system. So, quick revision from that. So, we're learning about the systems, mammalian or animal systems too. So, we started with some respiratory. The system of the it's ought to be like, you can just now think about, respiratory system of fish, insect, or even for humans or mammals or animals, so it doesn't matter, okay? Guys, what was the key point, key word, and the purpose of the respiratory system? Ellie, what was the purpose of the respiratory system all the times? Get an oxygen and? Carbon dioxide. Okay, what are the fancy terms that we can just summarize that? 2 words. Not too sure, Daniel? Oh, I'm going too far. Even before that. You're right. I mean, this comes after 2, but yeah, thank you. Now it explains everything in terms of the gas exchanging. Like we inhale the oxygen, exhale the CO2. We're exchanging that too. Now respiration comes after 2. Think about the respiration, or from time to time cellular. The respirations too take a place inside of your cells in the organelle called the mitochondria. Okay, you got to think of here, oxygen, O2 and CO2, this is used for the respiration, producing that forms of the ATP or the energy. Okay, now respiration also produces not only the energy, it produces CO2. So you got to think about putting this. All the respiratory system is all about this here. We want to exchange the gases so that we can have the adequate amount of the oxygen for the respiration. Remove those CO2 from the byproduct of the respiration. Otherwise, you got to think about what happened, the consequences of that. Having not enough oxygen means that you don't have the oxygen in your body, you don't have the energy. So it's basically killing yourself. Cell death we resulted from that. CO2 can increase your acidity of your blood systems too. So we talked about in terms of the enzyme activities too. You may know it will affect the enzyme activity significantly. So that's one thing. That's pretty much the A to Z of all the respiratory systems too. You need to know what the functions for that. Do you remember the some characteristics of the respiratory system to increase for the efficiency? So I'll write it down. Characteristics. Daniel, any characteristics of the respiratory systems?
Concentration gradient.
Good. Concentration gradient. Smart. Gradient means we expect to have the great concentration gradient between the in and out of the cells. Good. Therefore, what for?
For a faster rate of diffusion across the cell membrane for oxygen.
Good, modern answer. Fast rate of diffusion is what we want to achieve that too, for the efficiency. Anything else? 2 more. Come on, we did that. Large. Surface area to the volume. We always want to achieve that to get that large surface to the volume to what? Again, efficiency. So to get that, your cells in the respiratory system is kind of flattened. Okay? You can think about the cells like, for example, like alveoli too. They have a massive, some kind of I would call it some kind of hair kind of forms too. You may see the folding shape of that. It's flattened, the folding shape. Always related to the increase in large surface area to the volume. Do you remember the reason for that? Now, if you have confused that, remember back to our practice using the gels and how fast it took and remove those pink colors from the small one, which has a greatest surface area to the volume. It's not just the surface area, by the way, it's the surface area to volume. So greater the surface area to volume means that they always achieve the fast diffusion rate. Last one is the moisture. You know the consequences of when you have a dry cough, if you ever experienced that. It's not the best feeling, to be honest too. Dry cough make you like in your respiratory tract get dried again too, making more sick. The reason for that is, if your tract is kind of dry there too, the CO2 and O2 cannot be dissolved in the forms of the solution or the aqueous form like easily too. Which means it's kind of blocking that get a good amount of gas exchange. So if you have a dry cough, if you ever run like 100 meters and then whilst you have a dry cough, you're not actually complete the race because your body is not really accepting good amount of the oxygen gas, nor the ejecting the CO2 gas from that too, because your tract is all dry there too, which can cause the severe damage of your lungs later on. Okay, that's how we can think about the tracts here. We also learned about not only these respiratory systems, our digestive system. It was pretty fun to talk about digestive system from your mouth, all that too. There are two types of the digestions. Sorry, I want to ask you. One is about, so when we say digestion, it's all about the breaking the down into smaller parts with smaller molecules. Okay, and there are two types of the digestion. One is the mechanical, time to time known as physical too, doesn't matter, okay, or the chemical. So, if you remember the digestive system, now let's talk about the purpose of the digestive system. Daniel, what would be the purpose of that we having the digestive system?
The purpose of having the digestive system is to absorb nutrients from food.
Just the absorb? There are three purposes, by the way, for the absorption.
Absorption of nutrients.
Absorption of the nutrients. Good.
The elimination of waste.
Good.
I forgot the last one.
It's actually digestion. Digestion of the big molecules into smaller parts or two. Good. Even that is very good too. Now, we need to absorb that nutrients. Can you tell me more about the nutrients, please? What nutrients are we talking about in here? Protein? Carbohydrate. Good. Fat. Anything else? Vitamins, which has got the minerals too. Anything else? We can't live without that. Water would be considered to be like, it's not a nutrient though too. Water would be like a separate nutrient, but it's a key component of the digestive system. We drink and pass through your digestive tract and we are absorbing that in our large intestine of that too. So, carbohydrate and, okay, do you remember like why we need such a nutrients? This is what we learned in module 1, a little bit of that too. As your term started, you're probably getting that to that. Carbohydrate is main source of the sugars, monosaccharides. So carbohydrate is the main source of your energy productions too. You remember that there's a part of those respiration as well too. It's not just the oxygen with the glucose are combined and burnt, therefore producing the ATP, which means if we need some sort of the sugar or the simple sugar forms, carbohydrate forms too, protein is
broken down into it's something else than amino acids.
Yeah, it's amino acids. So where do you think think in this way, why do you think we need to have a good amount of the proteins? Where do we use those proteins for? That's related to later on in terms of nutrients and it's related back to the module 1 too. I know that boys are interested about it, building some muscles too. So after that, you guys are having like a protein shake, extra protein kind of top up too. Now, protein, yes, it does something about your muscle. It does something about the cells too, because every building structure of the protein, your cells are made of proteins. But not only that, muscle cells, your enzymes are made with the proteins as well too. So if you don't have a good amount of the protein, the good quality amount of the protein means you're losing some enzymes. And think about the consequences of that. I'm talking about enzymes they're using in the digestive system here as well too. Do you remember the amylase? Those are the amylase, the leptin, leptins, or like leptins, all those kind of enzymes are produced by the proteins too. Fats. What are the key point of the fats? Why do you think we need to still consume some fat, even though like some people say fats are bad, but in fact, it is very useful. We need to have that, at least a small portion, certain portion per day. One.
So fats are broken down into fatty acids.
Yep. Yep.
And another one.
Another one. Fatty acid does what? Do what?
Fatty acids, I'm pretty sure they store energy.
Think about it, guys. Here, you ate like late night snack last night. You felt like, oh, I feel like a ramen. So, oh, things happen like in those, especially like 11 p.m. You're like, after you finish your dinner, you're doing studying or you're doing some work, playing some game, especially playing some game, I think. You feel like, oh, I feel like a snack. Should I get some ramen? Okay, at 11 p.m. So you cook some, get some ramen now too. Now, do you think you're able to burn all the energies when you consume from the food, from the ramen? No, because it's about to go to sleep. And when you go to sleep, you're basically same as your phone batteries too. They go to like sleep mode. You're not really consuming a lot of the energies too. So basically make sure like you get fully rested. Means that the rest of the energy that you consumed at 11 p.m. will not be used up. But there'll be still a bit of energy left. Now what they do, as they are not being used for your metabolism, they are converted into the forms of the fat. And this is why you gain weight. Especially the bellies are coming from that too. Or the liver is the one dealing with the fat too. So fat is something they're doing with the storage of your energies too in forms of the fatty acid. What about your cells? What your cells are fully made with the fatty acid too. You think about what the cells are contain the water inside of the membrane. Cell membrane itself are made with the fat as well too, which means if you don't really have enough amount of the fats, you're actually breaking down your cell structures too. And you may see that from your skin cell quite easily too. If you don't think about the bodybuilders, okay, with like a zero fat, like 0.1 fat percent or two, they are really, really dangerous, by the way, because a lot of times those like the bodybuilders with the less than 1% body fat means that their skins are not able to regenerate. In terms of that, they don't have a fat to top it up all the same membrane structures too, so it's kind of causing that severe damage too. Okay, so balanced diet is very important in that sense. Minerals, vitamins are very important, as you said too. But not only that, I'm talking about something like potassium and sodium, chloride, even like some of the fluoride, iodine too. They all be working in some sort of your bodies too. Okay, so it's all about these absorption, and we talked about the parts of your digestive systems too. Do you remember like my fancy diagram I drew over here? Small head with a big gut at the end too. Doesn't matter, guys, okay? As long as you can show the similar diagram started from your mouth, which involving both of the mechanical and chemical digestion. We chew. Your tongue's helping to rotate the foods too. And the saliva is kind of lubricate the food as well as releasing some amylase. Oesophagus go through down there to stomach. In the stomach acid, we have a strong stomach acid, which is like hydrochloric acid too. What does it do? Why do we think the stomach's carrying such a high, strong acid in your gut or in your stomach? Yeah, what enzyme involved to that? This is like a testable question.
Is it
Pepsin is the one that prefer the lower pH, like a pH of 2, 1, and 2. Okay, 2. There's more. Why do you think we release the stomach acid? 2 purposes. Okay. Guys, think about it here. When you have some germs and bacteria, we actually kind of use some of the acid to kill all of those too, even though this toxic for your skin as well here. The reason why we're releasing such a strong stomach acid is we want to kill all the pathogens, possible bacteria too. so you don't get sick from that too. Okay, and okay, after the gut, after the stomach, it goes to the next section with the small intestine, and there's a duodenum. Do you remember that too? Which is connected to the pancreas as well as liver and the gallbladders too. We talked about a lot of the enzyme involving to digestion, which is mainly happens in the duodenum, which is the first part of your small intestine there too. They're releasing a lot of digestive enzymes, and what they do, they are breaking down the small pieces. Then, after they are broken down small pieces, this is known as chemical digestions. Your gut, which is basically small intestine, which is about like 10-meter length of your body, are absorbing that. Now, what was the main features of the small intestine, Daniel, to be efficiently digesting, absorbing the foods?
The main feature of the small intestine is it's kind of like a really
Folded up.
It's
What?
comparable to like an accordion.
Yeah, so why?
Because the small intestine needs a large surface area to volume ratio, and to have that, the small intestine is always squished up, and it has villi and microvilli in
Yep.
order to absorb more of the nutrients.
Very good. Would they have the it's like the flattened and the folding shape? They do. Villi and microvilli is basically like microvilli is like a hair's the villis too. Villi is the kind of folding shape of that too, as you said, accordion. That's a good analogy. Okay. Concentration gradients will be another factors of that too. We are efficiently passing those nutrients from the gut, from the small intestine to the cells, to all the circulatory systems, and also there are moisture. Okay. Now, can you see like for two different systems sharing the very similar characteristics in terms of the fast, efficient diffusion or transport, diffusions of the nutrients and the gases too? This is why, like, you may think, oh, this is repeatable. Like, I think I've heard that somewhere too. But if you think about it, this is kind of golden rules for the quickest diffusion that we can achieve in our bodies all the times too. Okay, regardless of the system, whether it's a respiratory or digestive system, all the times. Does that make sense? Okay. So after that, elimination happens in your large intestine after small intestine absorbing all the foods. So large intestine have two functions: absorption of the water, okay, and the reabsorption and the elimination of the waste from the feces in the form of the feces, and rejecting all the one out too. And there will be a lot of the good bacteria living in the kind of we talked about it last week too in the large intestine for your immunities. Okay, I'll try to just give you a quick summary of the respiratory and the digestive system that we learned in the past 2 weeks. So I hope I'm giving you some ideas about or imagination about what's going on. Today, what we're going to talk about is we're going to learn about circulatory system, which is known as transport systems. Now, how this transport system is related to these two systems. You got to think about first in here because this is all about coordination of your body. Okay, and we learned about in the chapter 1, if you think about it, we are multicellular. Yeah, we have cells. Then develop to the organs, tissues, organs, and then to the system. Why do we have such a different systems? We want to divide all the jobs. This is called the cell differentiations. Do you remember this term too? You will get one question about this for sure, at least twice. Cell differentiation means that from the stem cell, we get a now a lot of cells. Therefore, they are having their specific function, only their functions. What I mean is, hey, the lung cells in our respiratory system, can they digest? No. Vice versa. Our small intestine, can they do like gas exchange? No. So they have a very specific functions, which means they are all by themselves. They're very good at it. They're a specialist. But it doesn't mean that they can do everything. Now, after this, have a think this way. After the gas, we get the gas. And after we get the nutrients from your respiratory and digestive system. Think about the location, guys. Respiratory is here, lungs to the head. Okay, digestive here, your belly, your stomach to there too. It's kind of looking in your middle part of your body. Can you see that? Okay. What we have to do, your hands, your feet, your brain, they need those oxygen and nutrients that you absorb from these two systems. And the one that actually do like the transporting all the system, all the nutrient as well as this kind of like oxygen or the CO2 is called the circulatory systems, or the transportation system your body is doing. So you may think about these are the way we're absorbing them, they're required for the life, and transport system, circulatory system is something we're transporting throughout your bodies too. So let's talk about some different types of the circulatory systems. One is the open and the second is the closed circulatory system. So page 105 is giving you some table of that too. It's complete the tables to say like Let's complete the table to compare the closed and open system. So I'll tell you like as we go from that. Okay, so as you can get from the name, the example of two, closed and open systems. Start from the type of the animals. Closed circulation, or our circulatory system is found in the present in the annelid or the vertebrates. Means like you may think about us, for example. Like you think about the examples, us like type of the animals, like mammals. So I'm running out of space, do I? Okay, let's write it here. Mammals. Okay, reptiles. Not the reptiles, they're called bladder too. Okay, humans, dogs, or like you can maybe think about earth, worms. They're actually having these kind of structures too. What about the open circulation, open systems? It is found in invertebrates, mainly in arthropods. So you may just think about insects are the good examples of that. So what's the blood bath in terms of that? Now, whenever you think about closed circulations, think about yourself. It's probably the easiest way to think about it. So you have closed system, you have a heart is pumping, and pumping the blood through all that in the closed systems too. So in terms of that, blood bath. First, open circulatory system is that blood directly bathes the cell. So what that means is this. Have a look at the previous page, please. In terms of blood bath, open circulatory system, page 103, please. Now, this is the simple diagram showing you the closed circulatory system, and this is the open circulatory system. Could you highlight this part over here and this part over here, please? These are the represent the tissues. The tissues. So for our closed circulatory systems, we have a structure that is called the capillaries, which is a small, really tiny, thin, like a blood vessels too. There are in the closed system, and using that bit of like a diffusion systems too, using the concentration gradient, they are diffusing from the capillaries to the tissues because they are kind of more attached or adjacent. In case of the open circulatory system, they don't have the capillaries. Instead, what they do, they are pumping the blood and spill the blood direct to the tissues like this. Almost like blood showering. Can you imagine that, the difference between the closed and open systems? So closed again, we have the valves, so we have like the tubes, which is kind of closed, and we use a diffusion to transporting the necessities. Whereas open circulatory system, they are just having the blood bath. Okay, so that is what the insects do, and shown on the page 102, it shows you that. How do they actually do like this here? Can you see like there's a big blood vessels, it's not even the blood. What they do is these have some kind of tubular heart and pores that is directly pouring those oxygen or the nutrients towards the tissues. Okay, this is the important thing, direct pouring into. But we are not. So let's complete the table here in the blood bath. In our closed circulations, we have blood is confined. Blood is confined. Okay, within the blood vessels. So blood flow. Think about the open circulatory system. They are basically bathing the organs and tissue with the blood, kind of some sort of blood too. So what they do is the blood freely flow, okay, through the body cavities, and the channels. For our system, however, it's a continuous system. We are blood flows through the continuous the system. Okay, we call it as vessels. Okay, now heart.
What's the word after blood? Blood free.
Blood freely flow through the body cavities and the channels, and blood flow through the continuous system of the vessels. Heart. Okay, now think about it here too. If you think of like the structure of the open and closed, first start with the closed too. Closed system needs to have a really good pumping, so that we are able to get the good flows of blood too. So it'll be really muscular. So one or more the cavities. We say muscular. Muscular, the system of structures too. The heart's pumping blood. The pumping the blood is the key feature of the closed systems. But in terms of the open circulatory system, they'll be simpler. They're much simpler. And not the muscular, by the way. Muscular, like, this is what I mean, a muscular heart. It can think like, oh, it's got a really hot and strong too. Unlike the closed system, they'll be really simpler, as well as sometimes using the tube. I must say simpler, and the term they call the tubular, Tubulir, like a muscle, not the muscle, basically a tubal shape. Heart pumping into. Heart pumping. Okay, into the we call the Huncore. I just said the pumping would be enough for now too. So due to that, the blood pressure, first of all, for the closed circulation is will be higher. Easy example is if you have a closed valve, to keep the pressing it, you get the increase of pressure inside. Okay, whereas open would be lower. They don't really need to contain the good high blood pressure because they're just directly bathing their organs with the blood. Does it make sense to all? Okay, the difference between two. So in terms of the hemoglobins, hemoglobin, which is the one that carries the oxygen, yes, present in the blood cells. But in terms of open circulations, maybe not presented. This would be the key difference between the two open and the closed circulation systems. Again, easiest way to think about the open is think about the insects. They have a lot of pores, tubular hearts too. They are absorbing, just like I think about the respiratory system of the insect as well too. They have a really long tubules. You remember that too? Absorbing the air directly to using the pores. Whereas in our humans, we use the lungs to distribute the do the gas exchange as well as distribution of the gases. It's very similar to those as well too. In a closed circulation or circulatory system, we have a heart, which is pumping blood throughout all your body. In a closed valve sub too. In open system of the open circulatory, they don't have the heart in the middle. They have a tubular. It's a very small, like some pumping, sucking those nutrients or the oxygens and bathing the organs and tissues with the. It's not actually blood, but the kind of blood like the some liquids. So let's talk about that in here. State the main functions of the circulatory system in the multicellular animals then. What would be the main function? So, just like our circulatory system, okay, one main function is definitely be what? It's basically this, transport. Okay, transportation of the essentials. Essential like in the substances for the life, such as you may consider about like oxygen, obviously, nutrients, and there will be some hormones and the waste products as well too. So waste product, you may think about like carbon dioxide waste products too. Ammonia is another type of waste products, and they are basically throughout the body. So two main things is transportation of those. It's the kind of main things, okay, and also it helps to regulate the body temperature. Time to time, the pH balance, as well as the immune response too. So the way you can think about this is this. Is anyone taking the metro or the trains to go to school, the bus too? Now, this is basically the same transportation system we have in the city. Okay, there is a place that we are producing. So think about factories, good examples too. They're producing the very important goods for our lives. But without the transportation, without the truck, without the train, without the bus, can we get them? Can we get them? Even if like we have millions of the goods are produced in the good factories too, think about all the souvenirs producing that. If we don't get delivered, if we don't get carried by or transported by those buses, we never get it. Okay, so you may think about this is very similar to our city transportation system. In terms of that, we get what we need and we try to remove what we don't need it. Like you can think of a garbage truck in terms of that. Does it make sense too? And if we think about here too, if there is a city with a good transportation system, everyone will get them what they need. And everyone can get removed what they don't need it. But what if you think about country, like goes to I don't know, it's really, really far from here, but there's not much bus, there's no train, there's no bus, there's no garbage truck going up there too. You may be thinking into causing a lot of problems too. Maybe for them it wouldn't be an issue, but surely there'll be a lot of difficulties we can talk about. Okay, that's how we can visualize in terms of circulatory systems. Question 3. Let's talk a little more about this here. Outline the main difference between the two circulatory systems. Okay. Let's give you some little more depth and details about the two different circulatory systems. One is the open, second is the closed. So let's start with the open. Okay, open circulatory system. Question 3, please. So what happens in the open circulatory system? 1, it's not the blood, by the way. In this system, the circulatory, it's called a circulatory system. Sorry, the fluid, I should say. Circular fluid, and this has a very specific name of the HAEMOLY, okay, hemolymph. So hemo stands for the blood or hemoglobin, hemolymph. okay, and then they are directly the bathers, the organs and tissues. Directly bath as in like, yes, there are kind of, you can think of blood bath. You just turn the tap, and from the tap there is like a bit of like the hemolymph, like it's going in down on the two, and then they just kind of wash that, replacing all the two. So this type of the hemolymph, is the pumped by the simple heart into, highlight this one too, interconnected sinuses. You may think about this as small holes, okay, or the body cavities. And this is called the hemocores. So two key words, new words that you need to know for now for the open circulatory system. Okay, hemolymph and hemocores. Hemolymph is like something like a blood in the insects. You may think about all the invertebrates. Hemocores is more like a sinus, the holes there too, which can able to like a blood bath directly. So in the direct contact with tissues, and it's right here. Talk a little more here. The hemolymph. Okay, that comes into the direct contact with the tissues. And exchange the substances, okay, with them before they are returning to the heart. This is the key features of the open circulatory systems then. Okay, what about closed the circulatory system then? We did compare that in the tables too, but a little more depth and details about them here. Now, in a closed system, we don't really call it hemolymph. There's actually blood, and blood is, as I say, confined within the vessels. Okay, and does not directly, okay, baths the organs or the tissues. Nor the tissues. And there will be a blood is pumped, okay, by a heart, by a muscular, the heart, okay, and through a network of the blood vessels. And those vessels known as arteries, veins, and capillaries are the three main vessels that. Okay, and there will be an exchange of substances. Okay, that occurs between blood and the tissues. okay, through the capillaries. And that's what we generally find in the humans as well too. Okay, now could you see like 2 different points? We have a blood, not the hemolymph, and we have a muscular heart through the network of the blood vessels. Whereas hemolymph is in the simple pump in the simple heart into the and the colon, and it also goes to the body cavities or hemocores throughout that too. Okay, so let's draw that. Labels, schematic diagrams, the open circulatory system and closed circulatory systems. I showed like in the open circulatory system first. So as it's open, you can think about it in here. Think about we have a heart. Okay, I will start with the open, the system. Now, from the open system here, we may draw a few holes that look like this here. Okay, and actually 4 holes. And there will be some entry of that goes here like this, and there will go like that, like this, as we give it. Now this is going into our tissues in forms of that too, and this is basically where the organs, tissues are located. Now, good to show the flows of the hemolymph. So that shows that the hemolymph direction, and this goes like around that too. So what they do, it goes into the heart, they keep pumping that too. It goes out, in here forms too. When it comes out from the system, it goes all around to the organs, like almost like a bathing. So this is what we call that as direct bathing. Direct. Let's label that. The bath. Directly bathing the organs and tissues. Okay, and after they're bathing the organs too, the blood or the hemolymph goes back to the heart like this. And as you can see that this is not really like completed in the circles too, they're making like showing the open circulatory system in the forms of that. Okay, B, now in the closed system. Now we're going to look at the heart in the middle here again too. Now look like this, and there are a bit of like some think about heart is unlike the open system previously. We can think about we have a closed system. Closed system goes in these forms, and this is going to be vessels there. We have some arteries and that. Think about this small like a piece, small like divided the vessels, and after that, this is all going through up to here like that. Now, name of those. Now, heart, the blood goes to the vessel is called the veins. This is called the artery, and this is called the capillaries. And around the capillaries, we have tissues, and there will be some organs are located behind, adjacent to that too. In terms of fluid, we have a blood going into this direction, and this is basically the blood, or you may just say the interstitial. Interstitial, sorry, the spelling is a bit tricky. So inter, I-N-T-E-R, stitial, the fluid. It's the direction of that, so moving down and down here too. Okay, that's the main difference between the open and closed system, where closed system, as you can see, that the capillaries is the one that, the part of that, not directly passing, but transferring or diffusing the substances to the tissues and organs, whereas open system would be just simply like bathing the organs and tissues straight away. Okay, any questions about open and closed system, circulatory system for now? Oh, good. Now think about the meaning of the circulatory, by the way, because it is basically circulating in your bodies too. And same for the open circulatory system. Open doesn't mean like you are bleeding all the times too. They are still circulating the blue amount of the good amount of the substance around the bodies. Okay. Now let's then talk a little more about this one, the closed circulatory system. Page, missing the page number. Or chapter page 111 or 5.4, the cardiovascular system, please. Let's talk a little more about this cardiovascular system, and especially about human cardiovascular system. And it's got to be like quite interesting if you think about it. You're pumping the blood every single time now. So cardiovascular system, first point please, consists of the heart, blood vessels, and approximately 5 liters of blood that are blood vessels transport. So 3 components: heart, blood vessels, and the blood itself. We call that as our circulatory or the cardiovascular systems. Specifically, cardio stands for the heart. Vascular stands for your blood vessels too. So let's talk about a little more about in depth about our cardio system or cardiovascular systems. This is showing you human cardiovascular system. Now, one thing is, it doesn't mean that, hey, I have the red on my right hand side and the blue on the left hand side. It doesn't mean that actually. It's just showing you that the blue as in like more like showing the deoxygenated blood, red for the oxygenated blood too. And if you think about the location of your heart, okay, where is your heart, guys? Heart is here, isn't it? Okay, where is your lungs? Over here. Where's your stomach? Here. Where's your intestine? Over here too. Can you now see like everything we learned from the past 2 weeks, respiratory and digestive system, it's really close to the heart. Can you actually tell? Okay, it's not like they are neighbors. But, and especially like a heart and lungs, heart isn't living inside the lungs. You may just think that as well too. Kind of located right inside of it. It means that there is a close relationship between our respiratory system to the heart or circulatory system for the efficiency. I don't mean like heart is located here, your lungs over there too, because it would take a little time to the transporting the oxygen or the carbon dioxide for the gas exchange. Next page. Let's then talk about heart. Yes, this is the heart. And you may see from this here, I just leave that at the front so you can have a look at this heart structures. Heart is fully made within really thick muscles known as cardiac muscles. And we've briefly talked about the difference between actual muscles and just the muscles, the cardiac muscles. Cardiac muscles is really strong too and contains a lot of the mitochondria, telling us that it is the one that constantly moving to and constantly pumping the blood. So if you think of like the thickness of the muscle itself too, and the tenderness of that is really thick and really tough. The purpose of that is they are pumping the blood. So let's draw the heart in the really simple forms. I know many of times you draw the heart like this. That's the heart. Yep. Now what I can do is I can divide heart into 4 forms of that too. Now one that on the top, those called the atrium. One at the bottom here called the ventricle. These are simply naming of that too. And we got to think about this is a left, this is a right in our side, and the left in our perspective. So can you see like my right and the left? So what we call that is this section here is called the right atrium. The left atrium from the given. It's called the left ventricle. This section here is a right atrium. And the right, the ventricle will be given. Ventricles. This is how we give the name. So you got to think about that. What is atrium? What is the ventricles all the times too? Okay. Atrium is something you may think about. This is where the blood is entering. the section the blood is going into the atrium first. Okay? Ventricle is where the blood is exiting, coming out. But in terms of the where it goes, what we divided into, what the human hearts are divided into those 4 kind of rooms, both right and left atrium and the ventricles, because it depends on what the vessels are attached to them too. Now, show you in some blue and the purple colors, and this. Let's start with the some blood goes from your body. Okay, there is things known as the really strong veins going here. Okay, I showed that, and these are called the vena cava. Now, simple meaning of vena cava is this is really like the thickest, or maybe the largest, the veins that we have. Okay, from that, the largest vein are transporting the blood into the atrium. Goes in this order. Okay. Actually, can we take a 5-minute break? Okay, yep. Okay, going to the structure of the heart. I kind of redrew it, so to show the bigger one too. Now, first, I give you time to copy this one down. Like, I think you have some pages for this heart diagram at the back of your notes. Probably right at the back of the notes. You may use like some empty spaces there too. But I want you to have a look at that first, and then just fill it up the details with me first of all too. So start with heart structure, the right atrium, right ventricle, left ventricle given too. So just giving you an idea about atrium is where the blood, enters. That's ventricle is where the blood, the exit from the ventricles all the times too. It doesn't matter like a right or left. Atrium is a sign that we always get the blood, but we get different type of blood in the right and left. That's the main difference between the two. When we say the arteries and veins, we're going to talk a little more about that too, but arteries is something that we're saying the blood vessels that are taking the transport the blood away from the heart, always, okay? And vein is the one that transport blood into or towards to the heart. It's what we call as arteries and veins too. So, started with this here. Can you see like we have a heart and the lungs? It's like I just drew the really exaggerated blood and the heart like that too, showing you some details here. So we have a lungs right next to the heart. You can see that too. The heart is here, lungs right next to. Yep. Now from that, let's start from here. After the blood all gets circulated, they're going into something known as the vena cava. And this is called the vena cava as well too. The meaning of the vena cava means like the greatest vein, means the thickest vein that we have, and blood goes into from there to the right atrium. Atrium goes there here too. It goes in this order. Okay. Now we're gonna talk about what I mean like the blood after the use too. We actually call that as deoxygenated blood, and that's showing you that the deoxygenated blood simply means that they have a lot of the CO2, which is a byproduct of the cellular respiration, and not much of the oxygen inside there. After reaching to the atrium, now from here, let's follow the chart. The blood goes to we are filling up the blood in the right atrium first, until it's ready, until we get we have a good amount around the right atrium, and then, okay, heartbeat is described as lopped up, lopped up, lopped up, lopped up. In that like a rhythm stone, rup and dup, rup and dup. Now, rup is the sound created from when the atriums are like shrinked. So lup. Okay, and then think about like a heartbeat, lopped up, Rubbed up. It's a kind of rhythmical like in the sound, like rubbed up in that sounds too. Rub means we are contracting this atrium side of too. Now, due to the contraction atrium, we're squeezing that blood to fill it into the right atrium side, sending towards to the ventricle. Okay? Now, to prevent the reflux of that too, we have a valve between those atrium, and it's also shown on that too, is shown as that. It's got to be some valve that look like this, and that valve is known as tricuspid the valve. The valve is simply mean like preventing. So preventing any like a reflux of the blood all the times too. So again, after LUP, they are squeezing the atrium, sending the blood to fill it up to the right atrium and sending to the ventricles. And DUP, the ventricle are squashed to sending the blood into the veins called the artery called the pulmonary artery. So it goes like here. From the right ventricles here, okay, it goes to all the way to the heart. They look like this. Can you see the purple one in here? Okay. From the right ventricle, it goes all the way to the heart, to the lungs, and to the lungs, it will be like kind of divided into here, goes to both lungs here, and I call that as our pulmonary, the artery. Now, artery simply always means what? It's blood away from the heart. Remember that. Okay, so we are sending the blood from the heart to where? Heart to where? To the lungs, first of all. So think about it. After blood, the use of blood, the oxygenated blood, and they kind of arrive at the right atrium. Okay, the right atrium here. Okay, so it means that all your blood's kind of used, and they arrive at the right atrium through the vena cava or the veins. We fill it up the right atrium, and then we suddenly squeeze it, so that we can send all the blood that's used to the ventricle, the right ventricle, which is over here too. Right ventricle then squeeze again, and sending these tools to your lungs. Okay, so I show you the direction of this my blue. Can you see that? There's a deoxygenated blood going into the lungs too. Now, what happens to the lungs, our respiratory system? This is a system that are refilling all the oxygen, removing the carbon dioxide, as we learned, as gas exchange is happening too. So what happens at there and the lungs? You can see from the page, it was provided on page 113 there too. After those bloods go to the lungs are refilling those oxygen, and as well as removing the CO2, making that turning into our deoxygenated blood into the oxygenated blood. And after that, this is going to be happen. This oxygenated blood from the lungs are connected to this here like this. Okay, and then the blood will now receive that, and through this process, and this things, the vessels called not the aorta, it's called the pulmonary, the veins are given here like that too. So what does pulmonary veins do? They are taking those oxygenated blood from lungs to, not the right, the left-hand side, the left atrium. Means that the left atrium is now filled up with the good, healthy, oxygenated blood, which is represented as the red color. You look like this too. Okay, and what happened? Like, remember, lupped up means atriums get squished again. So the lup, or the squashing that sound, sending those bloods into the right and left ventricle that goes like this too. And again, to avoid any of the reflux, we have the same valves, same as like tricuspid valve too. And after that, left ventricle. Now, you gotta see the left ventricle, guys, here. Even in here, diagram, or even that too. Now, this is the left ventricle. Okay, this is the right ventricle there too. Anyway, can you have a look? The left ventricle here, can you see the muscles there in the left ventricle compared to the right ventricle over here too? Even on the atrium side there too. This is much thicker. Much more thicker too. And this is kind of why the heart doesn't look like it kind of shifted. due to that the shortened, strong muscles located in the left ventricles compared to the long muscles on the right ventricle side of that too. This is representing that the heart, when heart is pumping, left ventricle will produce a greater amount of the force that pumping the blood from heart to the all around body. And this goes to the final destiny hour through the something like look like this, and can't draw that. It's hard to see. And this is called the aorta, the thickest or the greatest artery. To that too. It's hard to represent from here, so you can have a look at the refer to that. See that left ventricle sending all the blood to the aorta, and from the aorta, it's going to all around your body and circulating the blood again too. But the interesting thing is, this happens. This as in like sending the blood to the lungs, and they sending the blood to the heart, as in the body. It happens simultaneously in the same time. What I mean is this: when we are filling up the right atrium, it's also filling up the left atrium too. When we send the blood to the right ventricle to the lungs, it's also sending to the left ventricles too. So I give you a flow chart for this kind of blood flow all the times too. Show the circulation system, how the circulatory system is working with the heart. Okay, have a look. Have a look at this. What I'm gonna start is I'm gonna think of a body, the rest of the body with the capillaries. Okay, body with the capillary. You've got to start right here. Now, those body, I'm talking about every single body, like it's systems there too. We are taking this body to use the oxygenated blood. So, the body's sending us some deoxygenated blood. Deoxygenated the blood. Okay, so I'm talking about body in terms of the whole your bodies too, and two, your heart. Okay, let's be specific about the portion of the heart to the right atrium of the heart. Okay, and this is gonna through the vessels. Through the veins, or we may say circulatory veins. It's kind of systematic veins too, or the vena cava. Doesn't really matter. Okay, so your right atrium of the heart, I'm talking about the heart system here, is receiving that deoxygenated blood. Make sense? Okay, this now goes to your right, the ventricle. After the lup, the lupped up, rubbed up, okay, rubbed up sound. It's not P, it's like B, rub. The sound after that too. Okay, now when those deoxygenated blood is arrived in the right ventricles, there will be a squeeze of that and sending this blood into our lungs. Goes to lungs, and this process taking the place using one of the arteries called the pulmonary artery. Now, don't get confused that the one that goes from the right ventricle to the lungs is called the artery, because the artery is the one that transports the blood away from the heart. This is the definition of the artery. Artery doesn't always mean that it's transporting the oxygenated blood. There's probably like a false information from that. Artery is the one that it's a vessel that blood taking the blood away from the heart. So just like here, right ventricle, we're taking the blood into the deoxygenated blood into the lungs. Yes.
So does the blood go from the right atrium to the right ventricle,
Yep.
to the lungs, to the left atrium, to the left ventricle, and then to the body?
Pretty much. I show you that in here too. Okay. After rub sound, we go something again. The right atrium is kind of squeezed, and they're sending the blood to the right ventricles, and then dup sound. It's basically a squeezing of the ventricle, and then we are sending the blood. Still be the deoxygenated blood. So I show it in the blue deoxygenated blood here like this. Okay, and then what does it do? Lungs are sending this in that. You can think about this lung is kind of our gas station. A few stations too. They are filling up those deoxygenated blood. So there will be like gas, where the gas exchange is occurred to, means that what happened gets exchanged in the lungs? O2 is refilled, and the CO2 is removed. That's what we learned about the lungs, or about the respiratory system. So from here, they're sending this oxygenated blood. Oxygenated the blood through the pulmonary, this time veins, to our left atrium. Okay, could you tell, looking at from lungs, we are now getting refilling the oxygen and sending to our left atrium there too. Now from that left atrium, we're sending blood to our left ventricle. We provided here like this too, and using that, this is direction of the oxygenated blood. And the left ventricles are sending this. Actually, let me just put the body in here. It'd be better to show a body with the capillaries. So it was going into this direction, and it's going into this direction here like this with the deoxygenated the blood, and through the vena cava goes to the directions and the veins. From that, okay, let's go back to left ventricle after that. So from the left atrium, that sounds be like the rub again too, rub. And then after the oxygenated blood arrived in the left ventricles, we're stimulating the left ventricle to squeeze, making the sound of the dup. So what happened to the deoxygenated blood? It will goes to all around through the blood vessel called the aorta, or the and arteries becomes after that too. And as you can see, I've created perfect like a circulating system over here, but I can divide it to circular system into two. One is circular system from involving this part over here. Can you see that? Okay, use a different color, purple. Now what is happening in here? There's a site of that. We have the right ventricle sending the deoxygenated blood into the lungs, and lungs sending the blood back into the heart. Okay, this is, well, it's actually given that too, known as pulmonary the cycle of the blood, which is also provided on your page, or circuit, is not the cycle, circuit, it's a better word. It's a better word for that. Next part of that too, we have this side of your left ventricle to this whole section. Can you see that? To the body, to the left ventricle, to the right atrium, all that sections too. This is what we call that as the systematic, the circuit, or systemic circuit. It's not the systematic, systemic is the word I have to use, systemic. So what's the difference between that two? Systemic circuit means we are sending blood to our body, and body sending the blood back into the heart. That's a systematic circuit. What about pulmonary circuit? Means that it's sending the oxygenated blood to the lungs, lungs sending us the good oxygenated blood to the heart again too. What you probably confused you from here is, hey, you gotta think about it in here. Can you see, like, every single time we have an atrium, it's sending the blood to the ventricles. Doesn't matter to right or left. Okay? Whenever the blood's leaving the heart, whether we have the oxygenated, deoxygenated blood, whenever we're leaving the blood, this is called the artery. Okay, same for here. The blood, which is this case like the oxygenated blood, is leaving the left ventricle, but go through the arteries too. Whereas when the blood is entering into the heart, whether that's deoxygenated or deoxygenated, it still be called the veins. So we may have the pulmonary veins, and we may have the veins or the vena cava sense too. This is the simple flow chart of our human or mammalian circulatory systems, using that what? Heart. So this part is heart basically, and as well as your veins or your blood vessel systems too. Make sense? Okay, copy this one down, please. This is not really given on your workbook. You can copy those on the back of your page in terms of the flow chart of the heart system, all that too. So, after you going through this, you ought to know that when we get the oxygenated blood, when we get the deoxygenated blood too. Okay, Daniel, in terms of this, in the pulmonary veins, are we getting the oxygenated blood or deoxygenated blood?
Oxygenated blood.
We get oxygen because what is the where is the pulmonary veins connected?
It's connected to the
Lungs to
the left atrium.
Good. So you will pumping that, sending the oxygenated blood from the lungs to. You can think about this as where we are sending the blood to all your bodies to, in the left-hand side of the atrium. Yeah, left. Your left. Okay. Okay, and then sending blood to that too. Now, important thing is, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean like here, we're sending blood in and out. It actually happens simultaneously, which means when we get this blood received by the right atrium, the blood also received by the left atrium too. So basically, this is the filling up the blood in this section here. This is called the atrium section. Can you see the atrium? Okay. Again, that's the right, that's the left. So when we are filling up the blood, we are filling both atrium at the same time. Okay, and then that's where we get the sound of the lup. So lup means that we are squeezing those top muscles on the top of that too, sending blood into the ventricles, two ventricles, and the dup, making what? Squeezing the ventricle side too. One side, the right atrium, sending blood to the lungs. This side here, left ventricle, sending blood to the body. Okay, and this happens what? Continuously, constantly, until you die. Since you're born, since you're made, and until you die. It happens like lup up every single times. And the important thing on pulse rate is we taking that as about 50 pulse per second, per like minute. 40, 50 would be a good pulse rate. Means that every, like, you may just think about every seconds, your heart is pumping like lup up. So we don't just say dup. We say lup up. That's due to like some squeeze of the atrium followed by squeeze of ventricle all the times too.
I have two questions.
Yeah.
What happens if the atrium and the ventricle both pulse at the same time?
It doesn't work. You die.
And also, what would happen if like there was a tear in the heart muscle, like even if it was a small one?
That means the blood leakage in the pump. Now, that things happen, like when the ventricle is not really functioning well. Have a think about it here too. Especially the left-hand side, the left ventricle. When this is not really functioning well, you got to think about the consequences from that too. It means you're not really receiving a good amount of the oxygenated blood into your body. Now, this commonly happen for the people with the diabetes as well as obesities too, because what happened is in that, it's not part of the year 11 syllabus by the way here, but I should quickly tell you, quite interesting. Can you see these veins over here? Now these are the coronary arteries and veins which is attached to the heart, supplying the good amount of the oxygen to the heart muscles. When you get too much fat, which is like due to cholesterol, and we're going to talk about that too, they are blocking those vessels here, which means, especially on the left hand side, can you see like the arteries and veins? If this is blocked, if there is no oxygen goes in the left ventricle, that means when the arteries are pumping, but the ventricle will not be pumping after. and which can cause the severe, like in the heart disease. We call it coronary heart disease coming out from that. It's also known as CKD, okay, but not part of that for today too. Why do we need to study about the heart disease, all the structure, the anatomy of that too? It's all related to pathologies, how the disease can be occurred, and then what would be the possible cures behind them too. But in biology, we're learning in 11, we're not going to touch up to there yet. Okay, we may do have a chance to talk a little more about the disease, especially non-infectious diseases in module 8. It's going to be interesting. We've got to talk about diabetes, what causes diabetes too. And you may be hearing about some diabetes like treatments nowadays, like think about the injection of the insulin, or the famous one nowadays, Week of Ease. Why is it kind of how they're related to each other?
There's a new cure for diabetes.
It's not new cure. It's basically like an kind of injection to make you to lose your weight. And it's based on someone who took it, like from my high school friend. He said like, oh, if you take the medication, if you take the injection, you don't really feel like eating something. So you're cutting your amount of foods in daily intake too. So make sure, like, and then therefore you're losing your weight. It's kind of known from the States. Like, a lot of the celebrities and using that, including Elon Musk, to lose a weight really rapidly in a month or two. But not the time for that yet. All right, page 114. I kind of cover everything, so I'm telling you that what happens to the artery, to the veins, especially in your systematic circuits too. Arteries, especially from the heart, is generally carrying the oxygen in the blood. So, on the side of the capillaries, which is the connection between the arteries and veins, this is a sign that we get the good transfer of the nutrients due to diffusion and all that. Veins, on the other side, would have the taking the blood out. Now, my question is this: which would have the taking the greater pressure? Do you think the arteries from the heart to the body, or the veins from the body to the heart? Which would take control of take care of the more greater pressure?
Arteries.
Arteries. Why?
Because we can think of like the circulatory system as like a water pump. If there's no pressure from the source of the pump, then there won't be any.
Good. So this is the site that has the greatest pump, greatest forces of the pressure. Means that if you want to hold that pressure, your artery must be like holding a lot of pressures too. And that gives us the very main difference between the structural difference between two. Page 115, please. It shows you that some cross-sectional dimension of the arteries and veins. Now, what you'll be able to see here is this. Arteries have the really thick, smooth muscle as well as elastic layers and the inner layers like that too. And most importantly, it doesn't have any valve. It's an important thing as well too. Now remember that the purpose of valve is that we want to prevent any sort of the reflux. So having this artery means as it carries a greater amount of pressure inside of that too, as we're pumping that too, pumping the blood into to the body. The takes have their thickness is really thick, outer layer is really thick, and the elastic. Due to, like, you can think about rubber hose, like the pipes or two, they're really elastic as well as rigid too, so that it can hold a lot of pressure. But they do not have any like a valve. So veins look like this here. Compared to the artery, veins are really thin, like compared to. And also have the valves kind of contained inside too. Now, the purpose of the valve again too, we don't want to get our deoxygenated blood into your body again too. So valve is kind of located inside of the pump, inside of the veins, to prevent the reflux of those deoxygenated blood into your body, so that we are maintaining good flows of the circulations. Does it make sense to why we have such a difference between two? Now compared it to the capillaries are going to be really thin and small muscles too. So page 116 shows you that. Again, this capillary shares all the same characteristics of the respiratory and digestive system. What I mean is, it has large surface area to the volume, flattened shape, maybe more like the folded shape as well too, to maximize the good transport of good like transfer of the oxygen and nutrients. Now, from here to there, as you can see that we have a good flows of the oxygen coming out and nutrient coming out too. So let's talk about a little bit of this transport or diffusions. Ellie, comparing in the capillaries to all the body cells there, okay, which would have the greater concentration then? From this side. The blood has greater concentration what? Yeah, so blood have the higher concentration of the O2 as well as what? The nutrients. Yep. What about outer in the body cells too? They will tend to have a lower concentration of the O2 and the nutrients. So are we having the situation of the concentration gradient between two? We do. So as you remember the diffusion, the passive transport, we will get the good transfer from in and out in the reasons too. What about the CO2 and other waste as well too? Now, CO2 in terms of that, you see here, inside of that we have a really low concentration of the CO2 and the waste. On the other side, we have a great concentration of outer here. Concentration of the CO2 and the waste in the outer there too. So, in terms of flows of the O2, therefore, O2 and the nutrient will follow the concentration gradient from the high to low. In the same method, from the body cells to that, we get the CO2 and the waste going in from the out to in. That's what we learned in diffusion in module 1, didn't we? Okay, that's how we can think about the concentration gradient and diffusion as well as related to circulatory system that we learned just now. And it's all kind of provided on the reason for them too. Okay, let's complete the table on the page 118 to compare some of the features of the arteries, veins, and capillaries, please. So I may need some space for this. Start with the arteries. Arteries consist of the epithelial layers of the cells and elastic layers, muscle wall and connective tissues. Same structure as the veins, but thicker muscular walls too. So, veins, you may just say the thing here that consists of the epithelial layer of the cells. It'll be basically the same as the artery too, and an elastic, the layers, muscle cell, muscle wall, and a connective tissue. But in terms of that, same structure but thinner, much thinner than the muscle wall. Oh, sorry, thinner muscle wall than muscle walls, then arteries. Capillaries. Okay, this is only be a single layer of flattened epithelial cells. And basically really very thin walls that we'll be able to see from the capillaries then. Okay, functions of the arteries, I wrote it down here. It transports the blood away from the heart. Copy this down too, please. Functions of veins, they are transport the blood into or towards the heart. That's how we actually define the arteries and veins. It's not simply about like, oh, oxygen in the blood, deoxygen in the blood. It's about like blood going into the heart, which are the veins. Blood's coming out of the heart. That's called the arteries all the times too. Whether that's the systematic like the arteries or the pulmonary arteries too. Yep. Other features for that too. In terms of the artery, they carries the really high blood pressure. Really high blood pressure all the times too. Now, veins, however, doesn't really have that, so it tends to have the lower the blood pressure. And they also contains the valves, one-way valve. I write it here. Contains the one-way valve. Let's go to the other features here. Lastly, capillaries, very large in number from the network within the tissues to be near the mast cells. That's how we can tell about those three differences too. Okay, any questions for these? For now? So question 2, oh actually I had that one, okay. Question 2 is basically following to this one, so you can copy this one down if you didn't copy those like in the systems of the heart to that too. So you may just think about how this, how the bodies to the heart, or the heart to the lungs to that too. That's related to question 2 given in terms of the pulmonary circulation and systematic the circulations too. Okay, so I give you a chance to draw that for your understanding later on too. And well, we kind of talked about this question 3 as well too. Okay, any questions about our this cardiovascular system, guys? Again, I just covered the cardiovascular system of heart and the blood vessels. Okay, so I give you time to copy this one down for the question 2. And more about the blood. So blood, again, is a very like interstitial fluid that only comes in the closed circulatory system there too. It's great to know what bloods are consisted of too. So to answer this question, I mean the information given, Daniel, have a look at the page 126, 5.4 please, and give you some details about those. Let's construct a table to see like different type of blood cells. So we have 3 type of blood cells. One is red blood cells. So let's write it down as type of the blood cells. Under this heading, we have a red blood cells, in short known as RBC. We have a white, the blood cells, the WBC. Sometimes we can written to, and we can have the platelet. The 3 types of blood cells that we have. So let's compare them in terms of their size and shape and functions too. So in terms of size, underneath the headings too, red blood cells are typically like up to approximately 6 to 8 the micrometer in a diameter. So it seems like really small if you think about 6 and 8. White blood cells tend to be bigger than the red blood cells, so 12 to 17 the micrometer in a diameter too, but it varies by the type of the two, and there are different type of the white blood cells as well too. Platelet is smallest among them too, 2 to 3 micrometer in a diameter. So among the 3, this is the smallest out of 3. Shape. Now red blood cell is known as biconcave disc without a nucleus. So the way we can demonstrate it is you can think about donut. without the hole that look like this shape. Okay, that's meant by concave, or it's also well described on your page, other pages too, on page 122. So that's basically like, you can think about this kind of donut shape without the hole inside of that too. Now, in terms of white blood cells, there varies in type of the white blood cells, so various shapes, and also but they're often with a nucleus. Platelet would be a small out of 3, but they're irregularly shaped, and then there are fragments. All right, talk about their functions then. In terms of red blood cells, they are the most important thing, like carries the oxygen from the lungs to the body, okay, body tissues, and transport CO2 to the lungs, CO2 back to the lungs. So those are actually known as carrier, carrying those oxygens and CO2. Now, white blood cells, the one that defends. They defend the body from the against the injection, against the pathogens, okay, and maybe the diseases, more like a disease too. And this is related to the we call the immune response. Okay. Lastly, platelet is something that clots the blood, okay, at a site of the injury. Injuries, and basically they are initiating the repair and preventing any excessive blood loss. Is how we can think about this to 3 blood cells then too. Okay, now going back to this a bit of like those circulatory system, it's actually mainly about the red blood cell that carries all the oxygen nutrients rather than like some white blood cell, the platelets too. But we still need a lot of the white blood cells for the immune system, kind of defending our body from against the disease and pathogens. And that's basically what happened. We'll be learning in the module 7 later on. Platelet, if you think about why we get this the clot after you get a cut from the paper from somewhere else too. Platelets making the clotting really, really quickly too. So even if you have a good some small cut, even the bleedings too, after giving like a 30 seconds, it kind of comes to stop. But there is a disease that people without the platelets, which means that they are not able to get enough blood clottings, making them to lose a lot of the blood before they stop. And that's actually a bit of a problem, especially they have an internal organ failure. Okay, so this is about the blood, and this is all about what? The cardiovascular system. I'm mainly talking more about the human cardiovascular system, just like what I've done for respiratory and the digestive system, because it's more interesting, it's more related, it's about us, rather than we're talking about some insects and too. So a lot of time you get a question related to some heart anatomy, the functions of the heart, as well as some blood flow in the heart, in the circulatory system, composition of the blood. Are the main type of the questions you would get a lot of times too. Make sense? Okay. Plasma, platelet is all kind of given to medium blood. So you may say like the red blood cells all that kind of contain the two. All right. Let's jump back to our lymphatic systems and finish up this chapter. This is the page 108, please. Okay, the reason why I separated from the lymphatic system from the into the cardiovascular system. Now, lymphatic system is also part of our circulatory system. Okay, Ellie, what's the function of the circulatory system again? when we say circulatory system, what's the function of the circulatory system? What's the function of our circulatory system? Why are we circulating such like blood and stuff? What for? Yeah, so it's all about transportation. Of the substances. Okay, so this is why we just learned about the heart. This is why we just learned about the blood vessel, learned about that too. But Daniel, what's the main substance that are transported in our cardiovascular systems?
Oxygen and carbon dioxide.
Good. So in the cardiovascular system, we are mainly like transporting the O2 and CO2. As we can see from the blood goes to the lungs, get oxygenated, and then get transported again too. What about something else? Like something like nutrients? They also get transported to cardiovascular systems. By time to times, things like hormones, okay, and things like some of the lymph vessels too, or like enzymes, they are coming out from the system called the lymphatic. The systems too. And I will tell you the reason why. When you're ill, when you get infections, I tell you the reason why your tonsil at the back of your mouth gets swollen. Okay, have you ever felt that before too? When you get a flu or the cold too, you actually have a bit of like uncomfortable sensation from the back of your mouth, like you're swelling that too. That's a sign that we have one of the lymph node called the cervical lymph nodes and the palatine tonsils are located there too. So what does it do? Like what's the lymphatic systems? Now, the lymphatic system is the one that transporting the interfluid the lymph vessels and highlight this last point please. The fluid along with the other substances present in the lymph vessels such as the white blood cells and the end product of the lipid digestion is known as the lymph. Is something we are transporting the lymphatic systems. Cardiovascular system, we use in the blood. Whereas lymphatic system, we are transporting lymph, which is containing some white blood cells and some of the fatty tissues like the fat products. I'm talking about hormones and enzymes, all that given too. So page 108 gives you some lymphatic system in the humans too. We have a thymus. We probably have a thymus too. We have the spleen. Okay, that's a sign that we have a lymph. Lymph nodes are located in the many of the. Can you see like we have a many lymph nodes here? So can you see this lymph is located in your shoulders, below the shoulders, underneath of your groin region here. Okay, cervical regions too. There will be a good amount of the lymph which generated in the spleen as well too. Now, why are they so important? Because these are the ones that are producing a lot of the white blood cells and sending them to. So, next page, please. The lymph flows in the lymph vessels in the one direction from the tissues to the heart, and the movement is associated with the contraction muscles in the close proximity to the vessels too. So, have a look at the location of the lymph node again to the previous page. Can you see like lymph nodes close, actually located kind of close to the heart as well too? Again, heart is our what? Is controlling all the flows of your body fluids as well too. Means that the lymph nodes producing the lymph from the tissues, sending that to the heart, and the heart is the one that's sending those lymph into or around the bodies all the times too. So lymphatic vessel, second dot point please, is a body eventually joins up the two main lymphatic channels in the region of the shoulders. These lymphatic channels drains into veins, and as well as we get these systems too. So let's answer the question to get this one here. Page 110. I write it down some major roles of the lymphatic system. So I give you some more good summary of what's going on in the system then. So main function of the lymphatic system. One is definitely for the immune, the response. It's the primary functions. Okay, and they are by transporting the fluid called the lymph. Okay, a fluid containing the white blood cells and and other immune cells. So have a think about it in here. If you get a cut at this point over here like this, if it a cut at like this forearm, I mean, I like to, okay? I got a full cut in here. It's actually burnt from the oven, by the way, too. So what they do is, there's a bit like some yellow light in my bodies too. It's a lot, okay, we got a cut, you got a damage. So what do? They're sending the signals to the brain, and the brain sending the signals to the lymph node, which is close to here is my forearm, which is this side over here. Oh my god, okay. Okay. Sorry, a lot of injuries playing sports. Here and there too. Means that if I had a cut detected in my forearm, they were sending some lymph from here to there straight away. Okay, this is one of the reasons why we get the lymph kind of located all around your bodies, except your main body parts there too, because we're spleen, especially your extremities, like the legs and your arms and the feet and to your hands too. So they are sending the very specific of that too, and they are able to checking those level of the immune systems and sending the white blood cell. If you need to do something with this, it seems like they did good work in getting curing too. That's the job of the lymphatic systems. Another function for the lymphatic system is they are the one that controlling our fluid balance. Okay, so what do is they absorbs the excess, the interstitial, the fluids, which is fluid that can run the cell. Okay, it's right here. Which is a fluid that surrounds the cells and tissues. Okay, and what they do, and it return it to the bloodstreams. So have a think about it in the case of here. Last night you had like a late night snack of the ramen too. So make you to what? In the next morning you feel swelling. Have you ever felt like a sort of swelling on your body too? You feel like your hands not really like squashing around doing really well too, because you feel like you have lots of the body fluids in your bodies, especially in the cells, all the extremities too. You feel heavier because you actually have an excess amount of the fluids. That's fluids I'm talking about as interstitial fluids, which is the surround the cells and the tissues. Then what happened as we learned about the diffusion and osmosis? You remember that too, okay? It will causing some absorption of the water from low to high, the concentration of solute, making the cells to be more like swollen too. And if that persists, it will definitely do something about your diffusion rate too, because as your cells get more fat in terms of getting more fluids, okay, their concentration get diluted. Then what happens to the diffusion of the nutrients that we need? We get less amount of nutrition than what we expected. This is why you feel tired when you're swollen too. Okay, because you don't get enough amount of the oxygen as well as nutrients that you need to survive. So to prevent that, to control that, lymph systems working, they are sending those water back into bloodstreams too, and those bloodstreams sending those water back into your kidney, to all the digestive system, we're excreting them all out of the bodies too. Another function for that is, this will be do something about the absorption of all the dietary fat. Okay, so they are basically using the fat, so their intestine basically absorbs all that in a small absorbs the dietary fat, and also some of the vitamins, so fat soluble vitamins are absorbed by that the lymphatic systems, and this is related to some of the waste removal as well too. Okay, such as the cell debris, the dead bodies of the cells, and they might just also do like some toxins from the tissues too. Okay, this is called the lymphatic systems too. We don't really study a lot as much as the other two, so let's go back to the questions. Why look at that part here. This is the plantar tonsils, which is the back of your mouth. Why this gets swollen when you're ill, and why the doctor's looking in your mouth when you're ill, looking into tonsil area. Okay, that tonsil contains a lymphatic system or lymphatic nodes. It'll get over here too. So once you get invasion of pathogens, especially in your nose and mouth, we always start from that part of that too, because you're inhaling those pathogens, ingesting pathogen through your nose and mouth too. Those are detecting the danger sign. So what do? They are sending this, sending this lymph to those lymph nodes. So this is a site that where you get I would describe that the battlefield is going on in here. There's a pathogens, as well as the lymph, which is your white blood cells are fighting against too. So you actually feel the sensation of the heat, as well as it hurts time to times too. If you swallow try to swallow some liquid or even the saliva, it hurts when you're really, really ill too. Due to this is a sign that you try to protecting you from the get a further invasion of the pathogens, so that they are easily get swollen when you're sick. Okay. Or think about the other regions too. When you're really, really sick too, you easily get swollen on your body parts as well too. Not only the neck or your extremities, your legs as well too, especially your legs. Same reason. They try to fight against. You can think about the multiple side of the battlefields against the pathogens, as each of the nodes are sending the lymph to those battlefield sites too. Or you think about your swelling on the mass swelling on your the forearm if you get a cut or something too. Basically, they are stopping that by fighting against too. This is where the lymphatic the system get activated, and also not only fighting for them too, they also do removal of the dead cells after. Does that make sense? Okay, so it's actually called like inflammations or inflammation response in terms of when the lymphatic system is get activated. But still, this is a part of the, don't forget that this is a part of the transport system or circulatory systems too. We can't really say, oh, this is the part of these kind of heart system. They actually do, because the heart is the one that's sending the lymph throughout your bodies too. The only difference between the lymph and the blood is more focused onto the transporting the oxygen, gases, and nutrients and waste. Lymphatic system is more focused onto the white blood cells, in terms of their immune system, or the keeping your body safe from the pathogens too. Two different systems, and I cover quite a lot of details today too. Starting back in from some of the closed system and open systems too. So if you want to have a look at the page 104, it shows the fish, or the mollusca, which is like some snails if you think about it too, reptiles and mammals too. The difference between all that. And the difference between open and closed system. Now, there is actually a difference between warm-blooded and cold-blooded systems too, like reptiles and the mammals in here. Now, looking into mammals and the reptiles too, mammals and birds, we're basically having our systems of the lungs, the pulmonary systems. Okay, what would be the main difference between reptiles and the mammals? We're using atrium for the site of getting the blood to get entered. Okay? For the mammals and birds. As you remember, the atrium is always the blood goes in, ventricles always take the blood out. Reptiles, however, with a slightly different function there too. The left-hand side of the reptile heart is always functioning in taking the blood in, sending to the lungs as well too, in terms of ventricles. But for the left ventricle and the reptiles, it seems like it goes the ventricles to receive the blood, not the atrium. And taking the atrium is a sign of their sending the blood to the bodies too. This would be the main difference between reptiles and mammals too. This is why we sometimes call the reptiles are the cold-blooded. Okay, in terms of the amount of blood, taking the blood from that body is kind of lower temperature than the mammals and birds and temperatures too. But it doesn't mean that the blood doesn't contain any oxygen in it too. It's simply due to some structural difference of the heart, the type of the blood pumping is kind of slightly different too. Okay, that's a difference between two, but still be part of the closed. Remember that these are closed circulatory systems, and we talked about open circulatory systems of the this. Remember that the key word. Okay, hemolymph is the one that is using as the transport in the insect. Blood is something we're using, or the hemoglobin is something we're using in the mammals and birds for now. Do you guys have any questions about the circulatory systems in terms of the transport system in the animals for now? So, how many systems have we learned? We learned 1. Respiratory system. 2. Digestive system. 3. We just learned about our cardiovascular system. 4. Lymphatic systems. But in terms of separating the two, I would categorize, respiratory and digestive system as absorption of what we need and gas exchange happening too. So we just get what we need and kind of producing them. Part of what? The circulatory system is all about the transporting those essential needs, essential substance to your bodies too, whether that's a cardiovascular or the lymphatic system. This is how we can divide the many systems into two categories too. I mean, there are nervous system about the brains too. There are some different part of the system, reproductive system, which we haven't talked about it here today. We're going to do that in Module 5, especially about the sex hormones and all that kind of related to. Okay, but up to year 11, this is the whole system you're learning up to year 11. And you're not going to learn any more systems in Module 3 and Module 4, because that's mainly about the evolution and some ecosystem after that too. So what do you think? We just finished about almost, like we just 3/4, maybe more than half of that Module 2. Any questions for these animal systems for now? Pretty good. But did you realize I've been talking about the same thing again, to the same keywords again and again too? Because our system is going to build and made in that way. In terms of the large surface area to volume, moist, and increase the diffusion rate, this is the key for every single systems. So keep that in your mind to thinking about the systems too. It is pretty interesting studying about the human physiology, human pathologies, all kind of related to once you know what's going on in your bodies too. So if you don't really understand this here, I strongly recommend to draw in the flow chart look like this for the heart systems too. Lymphatic system is something you can revise it too. And of course, the difference between the open and closed circulatory system as well too. Homework for the next week is, then we gotta complete some worksheets.
Do you want to check out?
I do want to check yours, yes.